Hello again, plant friends. Welcome back to Happy Hoya-Days. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah, and today we are talking about the Queen of Hoyas. That's right, we're talking about the Crimson Queen. Before I get into it, don't forget, take a moment, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and leave me a comment down below. Maybe you have a new favorite Hoya as we're continuing through this series. Let me know what that Hoya is down below. So today's video should be short and sweet. We already talked about the Hoya Carnosa. We talked about the Hoya Crimson Princess. Crimson Queen is in that same vein of plants, so nothing really new there as far as information, but I did want to check in and show you this particular Hoya. So the difference between the Hoya Crimson Princess and the Crimson Queen, I know we already talked about in the Crimson Princess video, but the Crimson Queen does have the white variegation around the edges, and then the Princess has it on the inside. So a cute little way to remember that I've seen is that the Queen wears her white like a crown around the edges, and that the Princess wears her white like a gown or on the inside. So just a quick way that when I'm looking at them in the store, I can just quickly tell the difference between the two. So a few things that I did want to talk about with this particular plant. This one does have a little bit of pink around the edges, as you can see. The Princess and the Queen both have some pink new growth, and this one just happens to have it. So I thought I'd show you that little tiny bit of pink there. It also, you might notice, is starting to jump out of its pot. So this was the way that I actually received it. It was a cutting that I received in the mail, and it actually had this first little bit of growth here on the cutting, and then it had some roots coming down. So I just wanted to show you that it's not instant death for your plant. I have tried to push it down in the soil. It is just insisting that it wants to be out of the soil, so I have a rock to kind of weight it down and make sure it's not going to completely jump out of the pot. But like I said, it seems to be growing and thriving, so I'm not going to try to mess with it. I'm going to let it do what it wants. The other thing I wanted to mention about this particular one is that sometimes Hoyas, even the fast-growing ones, can seem to not be putting on a whole lot of growth for you. So another example of this would be my Hoya Carnosa. I had that little 2-leaf cutting, the one that I now have in semi-hydroponics. And when I went ahead and unpotted it and started to look at the roots to convert it over to semi-hydroponics, there was actually a complete giant root system that had grown down into that pot. Even though it wasn't putting on new leaves, new growth, it was actually doing something. And so that's kind of been the case with this particular Hoya for me as well. It started to put on just now a few extra little baby leaves. Again, it's one that I'm putting under my grow light to see if I can encourage a little bit of extra growth out of it. But I'm also just playing the long game with this particular Hoya. I think it's starting to kind of try to root down in the pot, get itself really well established before it starts to put out a whole lot of new growth. So I share that with you guys just so that you're not freaking out about your Hoya not growing, especially like the little baby cuttings. You're starting to think, well, why isn't it growing? Maybe you start to fertilize a little bit more or start to move it around. And sometimes those things can help, but I do want to encourage you, if one of your Hoyas isn't growing, it might be putting on some roots and establishing itself down into the pot before it starts to expend any energy on putting out new leaves. So I know I didn't share a lot about the background of this Hoya. If you're interested in more of what the flowers look like or the background and the naming of this Hoya, you can check out one of my other videos. I'll make sure I've linked both the Carnosa video and the Crimson Princess video. Again, very, very similar as far as care, as far as the background on those go. So I didn't want to waste your time explaining a lot of that. And I think that does it for our Crimson Queen, a beautiful variation, one that maybe is a little bit more uncommon than the Crimson Princess. So if you can get a hold of it, I really enjoy the way this cute little white variegation looks around the edges. Thank you guys again so much for joining me for today's video. We're getting very, very close to the end of Happy Hoya-Days. So make sure you come back tomorrow for another Hoya, and I will see you guys in that video. Bye.